The story opens with a family posing for a promotional photo at a photography studio. The photographer asks them to look a little more hopeful, but the mother bitterly replies, "Hopeful about what?" The picture is taken, and in the very next scene, it's displayed on a giant billboard promising that 2,000 new apartments will be built by the summer of 1960, a bright vision of the future that couldn't be further from the harsh reality the characters are living in. We're then introduced to a boy named Thomas, who's painted his face to look like Lumumba. He rides away on his bike, ignoring his father Jacob calling him back. On the way, the town postman calls out to him, but Thomas proudly says he's not Thomas anymore. Knowing about the family's problems, the postman jokingly tells him not to ride too far or he'll fall off the edge of the world. Back at home, Thomas's mother, Martha, is praying, while Jacob's attempts to get close to her are completely rejected, making it clear how emotionally distant they've become. At the same time, the postman is out in the woods steaming open people's private letters over a fire so he can secretly read them. Elsewhere, a hunter named Antoine is stuck in a cold, distant marriage with his wife, Elizabeth. When he notices smoke rising from the forest, he heads out to investigate. Before he leaves, the camera briefly lingers at his hunting license. In the woods, the postman reads a letter revealing that Antoine is infertile. As Antoine gets closer, the postman quickly puts out the fire and runs away. On his way out, he secretly gives Thomas a confidential letter to deliver to his mother. Antoine later catches up with the postman and questions him, still convinced he's hiding something. At school, Thomas watches through the window as the postman delivers Antoine's letter. After reading the news about his infertility, Antoine smashes a flower pot in shock while Elizabeth tries to calm him down. Back home, Jacob sits with a newspaper covering his face, reading about the political crisis in the Congo. Meanwhile, Thomas gives the secret letter to Martha, and after reading it, she becomes even more anxious. That night, Thomas catches sight of a mysterious girl sneaking into their house to steal food. At the same time, Antoine keeps a close eye on the postman, while Jacob behaves suspiciously toward one of his employees at the butcher shop. Haunted by the letter and disturbing dreams, Martha prays for peace. When Jacob again tries to be intimate with her, she panics and pushes him away. After being rejected, Jacob makes an immature decision and asks his employee Lisa to sleep with him. Horrified, she bursts into tears and runs away, while the people in town silently judge him. The postman watches Lisa flee toward the woods. In the forest, Thomas, still dressed like Lumumba, escapes into his own imaginary world. He starts a small fire near the neighborhood, and the postman quietly joins him. Their peaceful moment is interrupted when Antoine suddenly appears, puts out the fire without saying a word, and walks away. On Sunday, Martha gets the children ready for church, while Jacob, as usual, refuses to go. At the bus stop, Thomas spots the same mysterious girl who stole food from their house the night before. After church, Martha talks about the sermon, saying that people no longer recognize the saints living among them. Around the same time, Antoine briefly catches sight of the girl in the forest, but she disappears in the blink of an eye. He also senses that the postman is nearby, but the postman hides before he's seen and slips away. The tension between Martha and Jacob continues to grow, and every attempt Jacob makes to reconnect with her ends in failure. Later, Thomas finds the mysterious girl swimming in the woods. When Antoine suddenly arrives, the two hide underwater together. The postman then taunts Antoine about his infertility, making him even angrier. The girl remains unnamed and mysterious before quietly leaving Thomas behind. Back home, Martha grows increasingly cold and distant toward her family, while Jacob becomes frustrated by the constant news about Lumumba. Eventually, Martha runs away from home, and Jacob chases after her through town, shouting her name as the townspeople watch in silence. In the next scene, two missionaries arrive in town with a black man locked in a metal cage as part of their exhibition. Meanwhile, Martha's condition keeps getting worse. Despite Jacob's growing concern, she refuses to eat anything. That night, Thomas and his father watch workers put up a banner for the missionary exhibition. The newspapers continue to report on Lumumba, while Martha, now physically and emotionally exhausted, imagines that a religious statue beside her bed comes to life, sits next to her, and prays for her recovery. When Thomas walks into the room, she pretends she's feeling better. Later, Thomas visits the missionary exhibition with his classmates and is horrified to see the black man displayed like an animal in a cage. Feeling sorry for him, he secretly frees him that night with the postman's help, and the fugitive hides inside Thomas's house. The following morning, the missionaries search the forest with Antoine's help but fail to find the escaped man and eventually leave town. Thomas then takes the man deeper into the woods, while Antoine becomes increasingly suspicious of him. Not long after that, Antoine catches the postman secretly reading people's mail and has him arrested for violating everyone's privacy. That night, Thomas shares a brief moment of closeness with Lisa. The next morning, he returns to the forest to visit the fugitive, who had begun making a crude homemade weapon to defend himself. At the same time, the radio reports that Lumumba has been humiliated and tortured, symbolically linking his fate to that of the escaped man. As Antoine's obsession with finding the fugitive grows, he mistakes the mysterious girl in the forest for the black man and accidentally shoots her. Horrified by what he's done, he hides her body in a pond, completely unaware that the fugitive witnessed it all. Meanwhile, Antoine's wife, Elizabeth, who had grown tired of her cold and loveless marriage, begins an affair with Jacob after visiting his butcher shop, and Thomas unexpectedly discovers their relationship. Thomas returns to the forest once again, but Antoine violently drives him away. Moments later, the fugitive attacks Antoine with his homemade weapon and blinds him. Winter arrives and Martha's health continues to decline. The neighborhood women gather outside her window to pray for her recovery, while Jacob struggles between love and violence. Now blind, Antoine becomes consumed by revenge. After recovering a rifle, he resumes hunting the fugitive, who secretly hides inside Antoine's own house while Thomas sneaks him food. Later, Antoine breaks down in tears in the forest, begging Thomas to reveal the man's hiding place. Seeing Antoine cry, Thomas simply runs away. At the same time, Jacob's new employee begins standing up to him instead of quietly accepting his behavior. Eventually, Antoine finds the fugitive hiding in his house, but after hearing the man's sincere apology, he decides not to kill him and instead walks away alone into the forest. Around the same time, Elizabeth leaves Antoine for good. The next day, Jacob digs a pit trap for his new employee. Thomas witnesses the horrifying scene, becomes completely disgusted with his father, and rides away on his bicycle. Soon afterward, the radio announces Lumumba's assassination, leaving both father and son in heavy silence. The following morning, a priest comes to visit the dying Martha. Blaming him for driving Martha further into religious devotion and emotional distance, Jacob violently attacks the priest. The priest eventually reaches Martha's bedside, but Thomas, who had been hiding under the table, is discovered and flees the house in panic. In the film's final moments, the fugitive finds Antoine's frozen body in the forest, and at the same time, Martha dies, and the townspeople gather to carry her coffin to the cemetery. Thomas, however, chooses a different path and heads into the woods, where he heartbreakingly discovers Lisa's body floating in the pond. After being released from prison, the postman returns to town and Thomas runs toward him with joy. Yet amid all the death and destruction, only one question remains in his mind: what actually happened? It's a question that reveals the film's ultimate tragedy, that the final victim of this broken world is innocence itself, crushed beneath the weight of violence, religious fanaticism, lust, colonialism, and lies.